The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Prime Minister that's cutting health care. His carbon tax will cost hospitals across this country in heat, in laundry services, in delivering medical equipment. Calculations by the Saskatchewan government show that the carbon tax will cost $175 million, equal to the loss of 1,900 nurses, all to pay the Prime Minister's greedy quadrupling carbon tax. Why won't he get his hands out of the pockets of the provinces and allow our premiers to fund health care?
Wow.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
The Canada carbon rebate puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families right across the country, while it fights climate change, while it creates growth. Mr. Speaker, fighting climate change is about building a better future for Canadians. This summer alone, insurers are estimating that $7.7 billion in losses are being covered for that. That is something that we have to step up on right now. And the Conservative leader, who doesn't even believe climate change is real, wants to do absolutely nothing about it. That's not good for Canadians. That's not good for our economy.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Hospitals don't get the Canada carbon rebate. A measly little check would not replace the $175 million that Saskatchewan hospitals are going to lose to heat themselves, to power their machinery, to deliver their goods. And yet, that's what the Prime Minister imposes. 1,900 nurses could lose their jobs in one province alone because of his greedy carbon tax quadrupling. Why won't he accept our common sense plan to axe the tax and boost funds for health care?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will note that he voted against our plan to increase funding on health care to $200 billion over the next 10 years because he wants a two-tier system like most conservative premiers in this country.
Yeah.
Climate change will cost
two-tier system. Make it private healthcare system.
Growth.
Throw it in there.
In harm to our economy, in harm to our future. He has no plan to fight climate change. Our plan not only fights climate change, it makes emissions lower, puts more growth on the books, and puts more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians, the middle class, and those working hard to join.
So how much money do we need from the carbon tax to stop floods and to stop forest fires?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
More disinformation from a flailing and desperate Prime Minister clinging to power. I voted in this Parliament to increase health funding, and in the previous government voted to increase it by 70%, more than his government had. More than that, we did not impose a carbon tax on hospitals. He claims that people are going to get checks. 1,900 nurses could lose their jobs because of the carbon tax in one province alone. A phony rebate check will not make the difference. Now he wants to quadruple the tax to 61 cents a litre. How many nurses are going to lose their jobs while hospitals are stuck paying this quadrupling tax?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, he refers to the Canada carbon rebate as a phony check. At least he recognizes that it exists, which is new from just a few months ago. The Canada carbon rebate, as defined investigated by the Parliamentary Budget Officer, puts more money, hundreds of dollars, back in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadians.
But it doesn't.
The middle class and those working hard to join it, who need support while we fight climate change, while we reduce emissions, while we grow a stronger economy with good jobs for future generations. He has no plan for the economy, no plan for the future.
So when is the climate going to be fixed?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
How much money?
My common sense plan is to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. But let's talk about education. The carbon tax will cost Saskatchewan schools $204 million. That's the equivalent of approximately 2,000 teachers losing their jobs, all to pay tax to heat schools in cold Saskatchewan winters. Why is the Prime Minister forcing provinces to cut teachers and education to pay for his greedy quadrupling carbon tax?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
He goes once again with his little performances, Mr. Speaker, the little rhymes and slogans. The reality
Performances when he was just on the late night show? Are you kidding me?
including in Saskatchewan, is wildfires, droughts, floods, issues that are being increased because of the impacts of climate change. And if we do not continue to take ambitious action, future generations will pay dearly for inaction by governments like the government in Saskatchewan that he wants to emulate. The reality is, Mr. Speaker, we put more money in people's pockets while fighting climate change, and we're going to keep doing that.
Honourable Leader of the
Here comes the smackdown.
Speaker, screaming and hollering will not distract from the very serious question I asked.
Uno reverse card.
How many nurses and how many teachers will lose their jobs because his greedy carbon tax quadrupling will drive up costs to heat schools and hospitals? How many?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, teachers and nurses across the country are terrified of conservative policies that cut programs, that cut services, that cut supports for the most vulnerable, for those who work hard to care for other Canadians, whether it's their opposition to pharmacare, which would be delivering free insulin and free prescription contraceptives, whether it's investing in a school food program going to help 400,000 kids with more food right across the country. That leader has opposed the things that nurses and teachers care most about. So let's not take any lessons from that guy.
Wow. He's triggered.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He goes from screaming and waving his arms around erratically when I mention the carbon tax to bragging about a program that doesn't even exist. His multi-million-dollar school food program hasn't served a single ham sandwich, a single little bowl of Kraft dinner, not one meal to one child. It exists to feed bureaucracy in Ottawa, not kids in schools. So once again, put aside the grand dramatic performances and answer the question. How many doctors, nurses, and teachers will lose their jobs because of the quadrupling carbon tax?
Let's go! Parents should be feeding their kids, not the government.
I think it'd be instructive to look at how many doctors and teachers have lost their jobs because of conservative governments over the past number of decades. And that's exactly what this leader is proposing once again. I will tell you, Mr. Speaker, because I once had a job as a teacher, and I was proud of serving kids every day.
Oh, no. No, don't bring that up. Oh, no. Don't bring that up. Hey, he's not muting the mic. He's not muting the mic. He's shushing. Let's go, Greg Fergus. I can get behind that.
The Honourable Prime Minister, 15 seconds left on the clock.
Yes, I was proud to be a school teacher, Mr. Speaker.
Why did you leave early, Trudeau?
Back on the lives of thousands of kids over the course of my career, and I'm proud to bring their voice.
Who signed the NDAs?
Continue to put forward how we support our kids, how we support the vulnerable, as opposed to the cuts that they propose.
That's right.
Who signed the NDA? I am 100% getting behind the shishing. I way prefer it.
Then I have
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, it's not a race, but let's talk a bit about figures. The proposal put forth by the Bloc for seniors is roughly $1,000 per year for every senior. And it's not interference into the exclusive jurisdiction of Quebec. Dental care is up to Quebec, but OAS is up to Ottawa. If we respect the will of the national will of Quebec, it's fine. Otherwise, well, what's his choice? The Right Honourable Prime Minister, Mr. Speaker, over the past few years, we've invested enormously to help seniors, and we're going to continue to look at ways of helping them. I think we can all agree that vulnerable people, we have to help even more, and that's what we're delivering, a dental care program. But like I said to my colleagues and provincial partners, if those who want to deliver the same program for the same costs, we're very happy to talk to them about it. But for the time being, we are here to deliver for vulnerable people and seniors. Several thousand people across the country have dental
Yeah, man. Shout out to the translator.
We can do both, right? These two bills we're talking about.
Don't worry, Pierre and Trudeau are coming back, folks.
Advanced stages.
So don't worry about leaving.
Stages by all parties in this House. It's the necessary time was given to the government, and it should, even in theory, also garner the support of the NDP. Does he realize that he needs to deliver for seniors sooner rather than later? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Like I said, Mr. Speaker, we are here to deliver for seniors, and we did so and will continue to do so. In terms of the farmers, I made a promise, Mr. Speaker, that no new negotiations for free trade agreements would hamper them or remove anything from the supply management sector. We are here to protect our farmers. This is a strong commitment I made, and we are going to always respect that. We're going to continue to work together to protect farmers, to protect supply management, and yes, to help our seniors. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
2015. New York Times. Headline. Life in Canada, home of the world's most affluent middle class. How things have changed after 9 years of NDP Liberals. The economy today, per capita, is actually smaller than it was 10 years ago. Per capita income has dropped more in Canada than any other G7 country since the year before COVID. The gap between U.S. GDP per capita and Canadian is now 50%, the biggest gap in 100 years. Will the Prime Minister recognize that taxing, punishing, and attacking our businesses is losing us jobs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
What the Leader of the Opposition refuses to accept is that cuts to services and programs that Canadians are relying on is not going to grow the economy, is not going to help anyone through. We have the strongest balance sheet in the G7 right now.
Come
lowest
on.
deficit, the lowest debt to GDP ratio. Companies from around the world are investing in Canada because they believe in Canadians. We are wanting to set that strong fiscal position in service of Canadians who are hurting right now. We want to invest more in dental, more in supports, more in growth and jobs, and he wants to cut at this particular time.
You're wastefully spending all our money, bro.
After 9 years of this NDP Liberal Prime Minister, Canada has the worst mortgage debt, has had the worst housing inflation in the G7, and now has the worst GDP per capita change since the Great Depression, and the worst by far in the G7. Those are the devastating statistics that result in very real human costs. That's the reason we have 1,400 homeless encampments in one province alone and 2 million people lined up at food banks. Won't he realize that doubling housing costs and taxing people's food has very real human costs?
We have the best balance sheet yet.
Right Honourable.
All-time highs for food bank.
Speaker, when that individual was Harper's failed housing minister. He built 6 affordable homes across the entire country only. He did not help with the investments that Canadians needed. And his
I thought he built over like 200,000.
now, which is again more performance than substance. Lots of slogans, no actual solutions, is not going to deliver for Canadians either. We're doing what he didn't do, which is work with housing advocates, work with municipalities, work with provinces, and deliver the homes Canadians need.
Yeah, right, Trudeau. Lots of brochures, not many for sures.
when I was housing minister, rent and mortgage payments were half of what they are now, and there were almost 200,000 of those affordable homes built right across Canada.
That's right.
Now, this Prime Minister wants to bring in a massive tax on home builders.
Ooh, his first ever hiccup.
Capital gains. Now, the most preeminent economist in Canada, Jack Mintz, reveals that would cost our economy 400,000 jobs and $90 billion. Where are those 400,000 unemployed Canadians going to be able to get the food and the money to pay their mortgages?
He headed towards the railing and straightened back out. No ums and ahs.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister takes the floor.
Man,
I'd
so
like to
good.
remind all members to please not take the floor when they're not recognized by the chair. The Right Honourable
Hey,
Prime Minister.
better than muting.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition is instrumentalizing Canadians who are suffering right now to try and score cheap political points. What he is not offering is any sort of solution for Canadians. We put forward the most ambitious housing plan in decades because we know that working with municipalities, working with provinces, working with nonprofit agencies and charitable foundations is a way of delivering homes. I was just in Vancouver speaking to a young student who got into an apartment because of part
The same one that's on the NDA?
set up. These are things that make a real difference in people's lives, but he doesn't care.